My name is Mclay, and today I'm going to tell you my journey, how I got to know the Lord. In order to talk about how I got to know God, I need to start the story with my mother, as without her, I probably would never have heard of Christianity. My mother grew up in a farm in eastern China. During the 1950s, there was a severe famine, when at the age of 19, she set out to travel to Shenyang. Today, that city has one of the largest SDA church. After finding a job, she moved even further north to be nearer to one of my uncles, who was a school teacher in a small village. My hometown is located in the northeast China. It borders with North Korea. It's a forestry area surrounded by mountains. In winter, it could turn as cold as minus 30 degrees. But it was the most amazing and beautiful place. We have lots of natural hot spring and cold spring water on the mountain. So as you can imagine, we lived off the mountain quite a lot. We would dig a piece of land to grow what we need. During the spring, summer and autumn, we foraged a lot, as it was abundant with the wild vegetables, wild fruits such as blueberries, kiwi fruit, nuts like walnuts and pine nuts. In winter, my brothers used to put traps on the mountain, so we would have wild hogs and rabbit. We were very poor, so these helped a great deal. When my mother was pregnant with my second older brother, her husband died of medical accident. So at the age of 25, she was widowed for the first time with a baby due. And then at the age of 39, her second husband, that's my father, who died suddenly before I turned 7 years old. So my memory of him is very weak. At this point, my mother had 5 children to bring up on her own. And in China, there was no such thing as social security, so there's no financial help from the government. So my oldest brother decided to drop out of school, took a job as an apprentice to become a mechanic. Until today, I'm very grateful for what my brother did. He supported my 2 sisters and me through all the way to the university. Up until this point, we had never heard of Christianity. We had no TV, no means of knowing the outside world. Most people believed in superstition. Some people believed in Buddhism. I remember the way people showed their respect to the dead was by putting fresh food, drinks or fruit in front of a graveyard. Or indeed at home, there may be a small table, what I call something like an altar. Usually it's a little table with all the food and drinks on top. They would burn papers that cut in shapes of money, houses, cars, or any luxury goods that people may be chasing after for the dead. If someone had a dream at night about the dead relative, the next day they may go and burn some paper money in case they think the dead may have run out money. Whenever people are wishing for something, they always say in Chinese, 老天爷, which means old heavenly grandpa. But we never thought much about it. When I was 15 years old, my mother fell seriously ill. The hospital had to transfer her to the local provincial capital city for treatment. My eldest sister was about to take A-level, and I was about to take GCSE. My other sister was also in 6th form, so we could not afford the time off school. It's down to my 2 brothers who took care of my mother, where she remained in hospital for 6 months. When she came out of hospital, she was still very weak. Worst of all, she was paralyzed. She could not walk on her own. So during the day when my brother had to go to work, we went to school. Neighbors took turns to look after her for free. You don't get those things these days now. One evening, about 2 months later, 2 strangers came to our house. One introduced himself as a minister. This was the first time we even heard of such profession. I don't recall much of the conversation, but as I was busy doing my homework and revising, what I do remember was that in the end, just about they left the house about 4 hours later, my mother said, "If this God you mentioned can make me walk again, I will believe in him." As the only mode of transport we had at the time was a very old bike which weighed about a ton, she could not sit on that because she was feeling dizzy. So we had to walk to church. The pastor had to give us the address. It takes us, normal people, about 30 minutes to walk in average speed. But remember, my mother could not walk unaided. And we had never seen or heard of a Zimmer frame. So On the first Sunday, we set out to leave the house by 4 a.m. in order to get there for 7 a.m. to start. My eldest sister and I were on each side of her, holding her arm to walk. I don't think we were much quicker than a snail. My sister also tried to carry her on her back some of the way. My sister is very skinny, but she was also the champion in the local marathon. She runs really fast. But anyway, nearly 3 hours later, we made it to the church, which was up on a hill. We thought we would try to get there early for seats, but it was already packed by the time we got there. The elders, now I didn't know they were called elders at that time, took us to the front row as due to the illness, my mother had lost the hearing completely in her left ear and about 50% hearing in her right ear. To be honest, I had no idea what they were preaching. It sounded to me like a brand new foreign language. Usually we would drop her off and then go to school, as in sixth form we had school almost every day. We only had a few days off in the whole year. We even had school during the summer holidays. My mother had a real strong power. She insisted to go every Sunday. But miracle did happen. 4 weeks later, 4 weeks since she's going to church, my mother was able to walk unaidedly on her own completely to go to church. Which the doctors could not believe their eyes. They have seen many patients with the same condition as her, could never recover completely. If you think this is not miracle, I'll tell you, about 10 years ago, because my mother now lives with me in the UK here, about 10 years ago our GP referred her to the specialist in Oxford, and we were told the blockage on her forehead, and it's still there. It hadn't worsened. If she needs surgery, the only one that can do the operation was in Leeds Hospital. So we've left it there because nothing changed. Back then you could not buy a Bible or indeed any kind of Bible materials easily. You had to pay for it in advance. The cost was about 5 or 6 months worth of salary. It took months to come through. My mother sold a lot, so she made a book cover with black fake leather and red cross in the front. In fact, she would have made many more because everyone in church who saw one wanted one, so she made Bible covers for almost every church member. She borrowed Bible stories from the church. She treated these as gold. We were not allowed to go anywhere near them in case of damaging them. But you know, as a teenager, you were always curious about things you were not allowed. So whenever she went out, I'd hide the Bible stories underneath my school homework and to read. I found some are very fascinating. Some I don't know whether I should believe in them or not. I didn't know how to pray, but when an important exam came up, I always secretly thought of this God my mother believed in and asked him to ensure me to achieve top grade. We were always living from one paycheck to the next, but mother would never go to church without an offering. The Bible story that really stuck in my head to this day was when the widow put a meager offering. Jesus said it was more than anything else that anyone else had given, for they gave their spares, she gave what's necessary. That's in Mark 12:44. For all they did cast in their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living. That was exactly what my mother did. One Sunday morning, all we had in the whole house was one yuan, which similar, like a 1 yuan is like a 1 pound here, in the drawer, which she took as an offering. That means we had no money to buy vegetables or tofu when the lady comes around to sell before lunch. We didn't have a supermarket at the time, so we have a lady comes around to sell things just before mealtime. And but mother said that God will provide and left the house. Now my second brother, by then he was working. He usually comes home when it's payday, that was due about in a week's time. But the Lord was able. Before lunch that Sunday, my brother came home unexpectedly with money in his pocket. Not only that, he was paid more than ever before. He was paid by pieces, how many work pieces they've done. Therefore, he received 3 times of his normal pay. This experience has taught me that you can never outgive God. Over the years, this belief has helped us be faithful in our tithes. I remember a close friend of ours was very shocked that we were able to save enough deposit for our first house within a few months. Although I'm an accountant by profession, so I'm quite good at managing finances, I do think that most important factor is to trust in God. God will pour out his blessings on us when we are faithful. became a Christian, she had always taught us to treat everyone with kindness. There was an orphan boy who used to beg door to door for food. Some people would give out rotten food to him. Mom always gave out whatever we were eating at the time. Meat was very rare in the house, so we could not afford to eat rice every day. They were treats or special festival season food. One lunchtime, the boy came around to beg for food whilst we were eating rice and meat and some other freshly cooked vegetable. So Mom asked me to serve the boy with exactly the food we were eating. The boy was very grateful. He was very hungry and he ate 3 big bowls. It was such a shock that we had enough to feed him, and as we did not think we even had any to spare. Before he left, he took out from a bag some rotten bread and raw moldy rice people had given to him. He said, since they were moldy, please take this to feed your chickens, because that's what we feed our chickens, leftover food. This has reminded me of the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with the little boys, 2 fishes and 5 loaves in John 6, 1-14. Another experience that remained in my memory was when the couple with 3 children next door broke out a fight due to having run out of food in the house. My mother took half of what we had to them. To be precise, because back then there was no convenience food, we have crepes. We have a crepe machine which is about 3 times the size of the normal crepe machine here. And they were hardly any ready meals, so that's the one why people always make these crepes, because they can store easily. Every so often my mother would spend the whole Sunday making lots of crepes, because during the week when we go to work or school, we don't need to cook a lot. And these can be stored for weeks or months. And they were usually made out of rice, corn, millet, or sorghum flour. And now, remember, we have 5 children in the house with no father, but surprisingly, our stock of food never went down. That was truly a miracle. The container where we stored these crepes lasted as long as before, as though we've never given half them away. And so again, this reminded me of the story of the Bible when a woman whose oil never ran dry in 1 Kings 17:16, and the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Elijah. By this time in my mind, I started believing God's existence, but I never knew there were so many different denominations. When I met my husband in China, he's sitting here, and I found that's the first time I heard about the SDA Church. It wasn't difficult for me to accept that Saturday was the Sabbath, as all Chinese calendars actually start from Sunday to Saturday. But it was very difficult in China to keep Sabbath. At that time, many schools or companies still operate on 6 days a week, or even worse still, 7 days a week. When I started to read the Bible properly, I discovered I could relate some stories in the Bible to Chinese culture as well. The most expressive one is in Exodus, when they were told to make the door frames with blood across and down. In Exodus 12:7, and they shall take off the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts on the upper door posts of the house, wherein they shall eat in. When it's Chinese New Year, the tradition is always put the red posters and with writing across the doorpost and then both sides down. So I did find this very fascinating. And also the way we write Chinese character for boat is actually, the character is made out of a boat and 8 people. And so all these fascinating stories that I do find them so fascinating. There are so many occasions that God has blessed my family and me, even when I haven't even given all my heart and soul to believe in Him. I achieved the top grade for my exam to university in my home city. God knows that we were not well off, so He always provided us with jobs. Throughout my university years, I was never short of private tutoring jobs. Before each summer holiday, my sisters and I were always fully booked to tutor children who were going to take GCSE or A-level, or its equivalent. We don't call it GCSE or A-level. In fact, we had to turn a lot of them down, as we were always very, fully booked. We were quite well known in our hometown for academic achievement. We were able to graduate without asking my poor mother for any financial assistance. As my husband's home country is here in the UK, so I came here to settle with him in 1995. I was baptized here in Newbold that year, thanks to Pastor Coates, who I missed a great deal. Perhaps some of you may remember him as a pastor here. God has blessed us with 2 wonderful children and provided us with everything we could need, and even things we hoped for. And just to thank the Lord, this week my mother had travelled to China on Tuesday, but the flight was cancelled and they were put in a hotel at the age of nearly 80, and she did well. Despite 14 hours delay, she arrived in China safely. Yeah. So thank you for listening to my story.